maybe we'll get back to the program. Thanks for your patience, everyone. I'm sorry that the link didn't work, but I'm glad that we were able to get through it. And
I'm muting to kill my rain sound.
okay,
My tin roof.
you can jump in later if you have questions. But as you all know, we've got Tom Knipe here. He's Deputy Director of the Economic Development for the city, and appreciate him coming on for us. And welcome. Share a little bit about your background, where you're coming from, and what's going on with the position, and we'll go from there.
Sure. Well, it's nice to see everybody. My first time doing something like this, so can I maybe start with a question and just ask you all like what you're hoping to get out of this? Because I have no problem talking, but I don't want to say things that aren't interesting or useful to you. We can also just do a Q&A, but what are you hoping to get out of our discussion today?
Oh, but I would love to just get an update. As I mentioned before you started, I organized a neighborhood meeting with our local representatives to get some idea about all the building that's going on. I live in the Washington Park area, and Duxon and Seth Murtaugh were very good about giving us updates about all the building. Since then, I mean, we've received some notices about all the Airbnb stuff that's going on, and that there are companies, I guess established companies, that are buying houses downtown with the purpose of turning them into Airbnbs. So I understand that there are going to be some fines, or not fines. Maybe the city is looking to collect some extra money from these companies. I just want to understand, because I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I have considered maybe renting out my house if I'm away during the winter. I didn't do it this past winter, but frankly, I think it's unfair for individuals who want to rent out space and be imposed with additional fines. So I'd like some clarification on that. If companies are doing it, people who are already in big business buying houses downtown and wanting just for the purpose of making money with Airbnb, that's another thing. So I hope the city is making a distinction there, okay? Because it's expensive to live in Ithaca, and anyway, taxes and all of that. So I hope that those fines or whatever, those fees aren't going to be imposed on individual poor working folks like myself. All right. What else? I had another question. A couple of years ago, I noticed on the tax return that during the Trump administration, that there were tax benefits for people who wanted to invest in economic opportunity zones. And I understand there's an economic opportunity zone in Tompkins County. So I've been trying to get some information about that. I contacted the guy at my credit union, and I don't know, he said something really strange to me, and I just backed off, and I said, well, and he said, unless you have $100,000 or something like that to invest in these economic opportunity zones, then it's not for you. And what I know is that in some other places, like in Charlotte, North Carolina, there were meetings for just regular residents to invest in economic opportunity zones. So maybe you could talk just a little bit about that, and that's it for me.
Thank you. That's a set of really good questions.
I'm actually, what has been good about this series that Zach has put together about public figures and coming in and talking is just finding out what each of these offices does, because I'll tell you, it's not very transparent.
Yeah. Sure. Okay. Any other hopes, wishes for our time together? Folks want to share?
Yeah, just to again follow up on the meeting that we had with our local representatives last month. I guess I'm not sure if you're the person to say this to or raise the question, but it's wonderful to have all of this building. Of course, if it adds to the help to decrease the burden of tax on residents by having more and more buildings, but the representative said not necessarily. However, I will say this, that there has to be some investment in more trash cans. Like I live near Washington Park. So we have all of this building going on. I think it's great, it's wonderful, but there are still long-term residents. Most of the people who are part of this GI group, as seniors, we understand that we're here to stay. We've been here for a long time. So there needs to be investment in other things like the local parks. It's hard to find a trash can. You get one trash can per park. And one of my neighbors, he fought really hard just to get an extra trash can. So if you have more development, it means you have more people coming in and dropping trash here and there. We want people to know, everybody to know, comes into this community that we want good traffic, you know, we want people to slow down with the traffic. We need support for police and community works, okay? When I say that, so you have more and more people, more students, more whatever, more housing, and affordable housing is definitely needed. But we also want an investment in making sure our streets are safe for elders and for little children and cats and dogs and things like that, all right? So I'm not sure, Tom, if you're the person I should pass this on to, but we need you to work with the public officials on things like enough. And when I say policing, I'm talking about community policing, okay? I love my community. But when you have more and more people, you have more development, we need more friendly kind of policing. And so however this economic development can contribute to that, it's a good thing. And we need more trash cans, and we want people to slow down in the city of Ithaca, not rushing to get to Cornell or whatever and flying through these streets. So there's all this information about new traffic patterns. We're all concerned about it as residents, as seniors. And this group here, we have a lot of active people like myself, some people not so active who are walking. I have a couple of neighbors in their 80s and 90s who walk every day. One lady, she, I'm trying to think of her name right now, Natasha. Natasha, I see her walking up and down Route 13 with her shopping cart, and I'm quite concerned about that. You know, as there's more and more traffic to come through the city. So as we talk about development, we know economic development is important, but spend some of that money that's coming in for development for the sake of the residents that live here. Okay, that's all. I'd like to know what the plans are.
I have a question that sort of fits in with that. Is I walk in the library place area frequently, and they have blocked off sidewalks, and they have not done anything for a year or more. If they can't get going, why don't they let the sidewalks open to us again? They have blocked that sidewalk off by Lifelong, where a lot of old people go. Does anybody say, hey, you're doing your development, but this is supposed to be a pedestrian friendly city? If you're not doing anything, then open our sidewalks up to us again.
I'd like to interject here. I really want to hear what Tom has to say, because I'm not sure that all the issues that we're raising are even in his department. So could we let him start and then comment afterwards? Thanks.
Sure.
I'm fine. I really appreciate hearing where people's heads are at, and I'll definitely do my best to answer the questions that have been raised. You know, I'm a public servant, but I'm not a politician. So mainly, you know, what I will try to do is just provide information that I may have access to, because I'm in City Hall and I'm involved in discussions and aware of things going on. So, you know, if I don't have a direct role in it. May have information that's helpful to you, or give you opportunities to consider how you might follow up to have those concerns addressed. So thanks for inviting me. This is fun. And Zach asked me to tell you about myself. Let me tell you about myself and then a little bit about what I do here for the city. I moved to Ithaca in 2009 to go to grad school at Cornell and the Department of City and Regional Planning. And my background prior to going to grad school was in education, not-for-profit management, and bicycle transportation. And the bike transportation thing is what got me involved in planning. And so I went back to grad school thinking I'm going to be a transportation planner, and I'm going to, help make the city more bike friendly. And I actually wrote a plan that got implemented here in the city, the Bicycle Boulevard Network, which is partially implemented. They didn't implement my full plan. But I gained, the wonderful thing about grad school for me was it just broadened my horizons, and I gained an interest in economic development. I worked on a project looking at the long-term economic development implications of horizontal hydrofracturing in communities that had. This was back when the Marcellus Shale was, potentially going to be developed in New York State, and lots of concern about that. We were trying to raise an economic argument about why it may not be in communities' best interest to focus on fracking. So that got me involved in economic development, and I also did some work in tourism. So I served for 7 years as the director of the county's tourism program right out of grad school, where I was in charge of the room tax programs. Speaking of Airbnb, I was successful at getting the first voluntary collection agreement in New York State to have Airbnb collect and remit the room tax directly to the county. Before that, we had a lack of compliance with the county room tax, along with a number of other things that I did, to support a sustainable approach to tourism development. Our approach here in Tompkins County has been to use tourism as a tool to promote economic development and enhance quality of life, kind of in equal measure. And so a lot of the investments that we made with the room tax were very creative, not things that every county in New York State does with their room tax. We invested in the arts, in outdoor recreation, in heritage tourism, in agricultural tourism. So that was really fun and engaging. And gosh, I probably talked to every not-for-profit director in the county because they all wanted a little bit of room tax to do the thing that they were doing. And I did a lot of grant making. So, about 3.5 years ago, I moved here to the city of Ithaca, where I serve as the director of economic development. And my work is really diverse. It's one of the things I really like about this job. So I'm involved in real estate development, kind of on the front end. I'm nested in the planning department. So my boss is Joanne Cornish, the director of planning and development. But I'm focused on economic development. And what does that mean? I can share a quick slide with you. I don't want to focus on slides, but I want to at least show you the cover of a publication that I put together that speaks to a little bit of what I do. Oh, screen sharing is disabled, Zach. I don't know if you can quickly adjust that. If not, it's no big deal. Oh, you just made me the host.
You're
Okay. Yeah, so what do we do? From a vision standpoint, we work to promote inclusive and innovative economy for Ithaca through thoughtful economic development and assist businesses looking to start and grow. So a couple of years ago now, we published the Doing Business in Ithaca Guide. It's the first comprehensive guide of its kind. You can find it online. If you want a copy, happy to mail one to you as well. A lot of really good information in there that's specific to Ithaca and also more general about starting and growing a business in Ithaca. We have a business retention and expansion program where we talk to employers in key sectors around, what their needs are to try to support the retention and growth of the businesses that we have here. We don't do a lot of attraction. Some economic development offices will try to reach out and attract different businesses. Our approach here has been much more to grow what we have. So a lot of what I do is you're working directly with businesses to navigate city processes, or I do a lot of referrals to different resource providers. We have a wonderful network of resource providers here. My next slide will list them, but a lot of what I do is really in partnership with them. I get involved with a lot of different programs, projects, and funding, policy and planning, real estate development, and overall to try to support a positive business climate in Ithaca, to support sustainable job growth and growth of our tax base and enhancement of local quality of life. And I do that in a way where I try to be collaborative, innovative, service-oriented, and sustainability and equity are key in everything that we try to do. Let me know if you want a business guide. I'm happy to send it to you. Ed, you've had your hand raised a while. I don't know if you want me to pause now and answer your question. Happy to do that. These are the providers that we work with. You're probably familiar with a lot of these groups. Ithaca Area Economic Development is the new name of a group that used to be called TCAD. They're our countywide economic development agency, and they primarily focus on trying to grow our base industries, meaning our traded sector industries, businesses, firms that are selling goods and services outside of the community. And there's some theoretical underpinnings of that sort of approach, that says that if you're focused on trying to grow your base sector, you're going to be attracting more overall investment and capital to your area. And so they work, with higher education, high-tech manufacturing. They have done some work in tourism. So we partner with them on some of those initiatives. There's my office. Downtown Ithaca Alliance, of course, is our bid downtown. We partner with them a lot on projects relating to downtown. The chamber here, we have a very progressive local chamber, and we find ourselves partnering with them a lot on various projects. Visit Ithaca, of course, is our tourism marketing agency. You may not be familiar with the Alliance for Manufacturing and Technology, but in New York State, each region has a manufacturing extension partnership. It's kind of like cooperative extension for manufacturers. We partner with them on efforts related to supporting manufacturing. We do have a small business development center. I was successful in recruiting, in getting the SBDC, which is centered in Binghamton here in our region, to locate one full-time person in Ithaca. Prior to that, we had someone here one day a week, but we have a lot of entrepreneurs here that are looking to start or grow, and SBDC provides pro bono business counseling. So they'll work with you on your business plan to get you ready for financing, really a wonderful resource that we try to leverage. Also partner with Workforce Investment Board and the county. So just to get a little bit of a lay of the land in terms of the different partners that we work with. Let me stop there because the rest of this stop sharing anyway. The rest of this presentation is really about pandemic response and recovery. I probably had, one of the most productive and creative and interesting and challenging professional years of my life, during the pandemic, because of course, our local small businesses were severely impacted by the reduction in sales as a result of the pandemic, particularly retail, hospitality, food and beverage, and so we've done a lot of work, and I can talk with you about those details if you like. Support the retention of small businesses through various financing programs and other efforts. Yeah, so that's a little bit about what I do, but I'm just scratching the surface because I haven't told you about any of our current projects. But maybe I can turn now to some of the questions that folks asked at the top, because I want to make sure to get to those. And if, as we go along, if you want to dig deeper or follow up or ask other questions, and just maybe a little hand raise in if you're showing your video or in the chat. I'll try to pay attention to that. Let's see. Francine asked a lot of really interesting questions. Let me try to walk through some possible responses. Airbnb. So because I've worked a lot in tourism, and I've found myself, continuing to work on that issue here in the city. Just before the pandemic, I made a presentation to Common Council where, we basically were asking them, should we work on this issue? Is this an issue of concern to you as council members? And if so, are these some possible policy objectives that any new regulation that we might want to draft for consideration could answer, could respond to? And so those suggested policy objectives that we presented to them, that there seemed to be broad agreement with the right ones, include some things that Francine was talking about, like, we don't think Airbnb is all bad for our community. We think there's probably some good aspects of it, like when local residents can occasionally rent out their home for extra income, but we want to avoid the speculative investment in property for full-time use as short-term rentals, because we have an issue with housing availability and affordability here. And if we're taking whole units out of the supply, out of the market for use as full-time residences, then that exacerbates that problem. There's also some research that shows the neighborhoods that have a high number of short-term rental properties also see their property values go up, relative to other areas over time, which may have, something to do with affordability. But really, it's about not exacerbating the housing shortage that we have. But it's also about neighborhood impacts. I live on Lincoln Street. A neighbor of mine was evicted, told her lease wasn't being renewed, actually, and come to find out, the property owner, who had been a regular landlord with renting an upstairs and downstairs unit in an up-down duplex in Fall Creek, decided that they could make more money renting that out full-time as an Airbnb. So now it's an Airbnb. Reason I know is we see people on the street and we talk to them, and hey, anyway, it's and to have when we don't have permanent residents in neighborhoods, it has an impact on those neighborhoods, right? It's not just traffic, or noise. It's really about the fabric of a neighborhood. So I think, those were some of the policy objectives we put to council. They said, yeah, that seems like the right approach. If you can draft regulation to address those things, allow the good, but stop the bad, then go for it. So our next, basically that was in, I think, January or February of 2020. And when the pandemic hit, we felt it wasn't the time to work on that regulation. There wasn't a lot of travel and tourism, first of all, right? But internally, as staff, we've begun talking about, putting into our work program, the drafting of regulation that would address the concerns. To your question, Francine, about costs of permits, et cetera, I think those are all questions that will be worked through you know, as council considers, you know, some policy options. One possible approach, you know, it's right now the city, frankly, just does not have the staffing, the infrastructure to enforce any regulations we already have, let alone any new regulations we might develop around Airbnb and short-term rentals. And so part of what we're thinking about is, well, how can we bring in some additional revenues to support an enforcement and compliance, you know, function within the building department or in the city. And one way that a lot of communities have done that is by having a modest annual permit fee to be registered as an Airbnb host in the city of Ithaca. So that I'm sure that'll be on the table for discussion. You could then use those permit fees to follow up with any non-compliant properties, like the ones that I was just talking about, right? If you have a home that's in full-time use to short-term rental, we'll actually have the capacity to follow up on that and make sure that that we can have, you know, compliance with the new regulations. So that'll all be part of the discussion. The other revenue source from Airbnb short-term rentals is room tax. We did just establish a new City of Ithaca room tax, and those funds will be dedicated to support the new downtown conference center. I'm sure if you've been on Green Street in the last couple of months, you know what's happening there with the Green Street Garage redevelopment project. Both the western and eastern sections of the garage are now down to the ground, and the center set. The next part of that is the center section will begin to be have decks added. We're adding 4 stories of center section, and on the eastern section closest to City Hall, Vecino will be building a 13-story building, 3-story conference center with 10 stories of affordable housing above that. And so that room tax is the funding mechanism to support the conference center, and Airbnb properties, you know, are subject to the room tax. So we're trying to get the word out about that. And anything we do around additional regulation, you know, might help us with that too. So hopefully that answers, you know, Francine's questions about Airbnb, although anytime you talk about a subject like that, there are more questions that come up, and we can spend all day just on that, I'm sure. Opportunity zones. Yes, so with the Trump's tax cuts, the opportunity zones was part of that. It's a vehicle that is focused on trying to attract new investment to these formally designated opportunity zones. We have 2 in Tompkins County. One is on the west end and parts of the waterfront. The other is up towards Ithaca College on South Hill. And basically it allows large scale investors to defer or sometimes have entirely forgiven capital gains tax by reinvesting proceeds that they'd otherwise have to pay capital gains on into projects in opportunity zones. So I don't know a lot, to answer your question. I don't know a lot about opportunities for individual small investors to become engaged in opportunity zones types of investments. I know about some other ways, and I'm working on some other ways for individual community members to invest in local businesses, which I'd love to tell you about. But I don't know of any I certainly don't know of any local efforts underway to try to use that opportunity zone tool to allow local community members to invest in real estate development or business projects in opportunity zones. You know, we'll see if we have any projects that even take advantage of that here. So I don't know that it's as powerful a tool locally as maybe you know was touted. part of what Francine was asking about was also construction mitigation and how the city thinks about investing in, community development, broadly conceived. And she mentioned parks and trash cans in parks and transportation. And I don't know, I think the best way to try to answer that question is to share with you, different initiatives that, may be going on or about to start in the city that provide opportunities for engagement around those issues, as well as share with you some individual contacts that you may be able to make folks in the city to advocate for specific needs. We are about to embark upon, finally, it got delayed by COVID as well, a comprehensive citywide transportation plan effort that'll be led by Eric Hathaway, who is our new city director of parking and transportation. By the way, a bit of a side note, but the city had
No, we just lost your speech. We can't hear you. At least I can't.
I'm hearing it.
I'm hearing it.
I think it's you, Joanne.
Okay, hopefully, and hopefully we can figure that out. I'll just keep going. So we're about to embark upon a transportation plan for the city, and a sister effort that will be a comprehensive parking study and implementation plan. That'll be led by Eric Hathaway. I was about to say, in case you didn't know, it's kind of interesting. The city's had a parking director for years, but recently we changed that position to be a director of parking and transportation, to have a much, because of course parking intersects with all of our other transportation goals, like pedestrian safety, like transportation demand management, and trying to promote biking and walking and support safety. So we felt it was very important to, have the position have a broader view perspective. And so Eric will be helping lead that effort. I'm really excited about it. From an economic development standpoint, I think transportation is just really critical. It comes up in every conversation that I have about downtown development, for example. And so having a data-driven and also community engaged approach to developing a clear plan, a way forward, I think will be really important. Eric himself is, very interested in promoting alternate modes and supporting pedestrian safety, amongst other things. And you can find it online. If I find it quickly, I'll pop a link in there. There's actually a project underway right now, the City of Ithaca's Pedestrian Safety Action Plan. It's kind of focused on improving some specific intersections around the city with new lights and different curbing, et cetera. We've tried to improve crossings as part of that in various areas, so like Clinton and Green, and
Yes.
Clinton and Green have gotten improvements in certain crossings, right, with curb bulb outs and to shorten crossing distances. So Eric's a good person to engage with if you have specific questions, transportation, and as I said, those planning efforts are coming up. Jean Grace, if you don't know Jean, she's a good person to know because she leads the teams that are in our focused on our parks. So if we need another trash can in Washington Park, let's talk to Jean, because she might have one hanging around and we could just add it. I don't know, but she'd be the person to contact there. Looks like a couple people have their hands raised, so let me pause and answer questions.
Thank you so much, Tom. I'm not going to take up any more time. I know Ed has had his hand up for a while, but we don't need an extra trash can in Washington Park now because a neighbor really worked hard to get one more. But there's another park just up the street where there's a lot of Section 6 or whatever it's called, housing. There's a nice park there. No trash can. All right, so her name is Jean what?
Jean Grace.
Jean Grace, okay. All right, and so finally, the other thing is I'd like the idea of economic development unit working together with the public officials office, cameras, 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 all right? With more development, more business development, everybody wants to be safe. Everybody also wants their privacy to some degree protected. So something to think about, you know, if there's an additional tax or fee imposed on real estate speculators, let's think about adding some money towards public safety and cameras maybe. So, and that's enough for me. So thank you very much for the clarification.
Yeah, and Francine, just from a, you know, a city budgeting revenue allocation kind of standpoint, you know, when we have new development, even if there's a tax abatement, which you sort of spoke to earlier in your comments, you know, that does enhance property tax revenues. And may, if there's a commercial tenant, it may also sales tax revenues. The city's budget, you know, is mostly made up of property tax and sales tax, and those, you know, investments of those new revenues that may be generated by the project are usually, you know, part of the overall city budgeting conversation and process, rather than being linked, you know, to a specific development project and investments that flow directly from that project. So, you know, the city's about to have the 2022 budget conversations at council, and, you know, there's lots of opportunities to engage there. The one exception to what I just said is when we have planned unit developments. And planned unit developments, it's a planning tool that we have in the city of Ithaca that allows developers who have put together a large site to propose their own zoning, basically. And that zoning has to be approved by council. And part of that process is an actual negotiation between council and the developer about payments or other direct community benefits that they have to put on the table and propose. And it's sort of, it's seen as counterbalancing the benefits that the developer might get from having different zoning. Usually what different zoning means in the context of a planned unit development is more height or more lot coverage, you know, more square footage on the site than they would otherwise have, which increases their potential to, you know, have revenues from rents, et cetera, a more financially profitable project. And so we're very often able to secure, you know, money or additional community benefits out of that PUD process. So, you know, there's a couple PUD processes in the works now that you can tune into and become engaged with if you think we're not getting enough out of the developer, you know, or you want it to be allocated to something specific.
Jump in. You've been waiting there patiently for a while.
Oh, did you say Ed? Thanks. Well, I'll try to be brief. I have some topics, general topics here. I don't want to extend the conversation around the construction, but I'll just second everything that everyone has said about, particularly about this delay with the library place construction. And I'll just interject here that I don't drive a car. Well, I do drive a car, but I don't own a car. I use it like a car share, and with two other family members, we have an old Toyota Matrix that we swap back and forth when we can. I am so I bike and I walk around town. I've had one confrontation with the monitor at the Center Ithaca site when I was trying to get down the street there. But I understand that I was actually wrong, but it still was a pain. And actually that's an active site, so you can understand that. The other day I was biking down Cayuga Street and came upon the library site construction, and I decided, well, that street is so narrow, it's kind of difficult to bike down through there, so I'll go over and try to get down the sidewalk. And unfortunately, I wasn't smart enough to just get off and walk my bike. There was a lot of pedestrian activity as well, and I rolled off the sidewalk to let some people go by and tried to roll back on and hit the edge of the sidewalk and dumped myself on the street or on the sidewalk. So, but again, mostly my fault. You know, and there are other construction sites going on. I just shifting from that to increased housing. One of the thoughts that keeps creeping up out of the mind with some of the reading that I've done, that the more attractive we make Ithaca as a place to live, the more in demand new housing is. And to some, and I know we're struggling hard to make new housing development affordable, but that requires outside funding, government funding to make happen. What I fear mostly, even with the affordable housing, is that as that becomes available, then people come flooding in from outside, and it doesn't become available so much to current residents. And I think that, in my mind, that's going to get worse unless we can reverse climate change and keep people in the Southwest and the West where they are instead of flooding the Northeast. But that's a long, well, that is a longer term concern, but it gets shorter and shorter all the time. So yeah, I'm on the Tompkins County Democratic Committee, currently chair of the Ithaca City Democratic Committee. I'm doing a lot of work there. But I'll just say all of that is policy driven and kind of slow. The other thing I've been involved with lately is the Zero Waste Ithaca group, which is mostly comprised of some extraordinary young women who take these matters very seriously, live the life of zero waste, and the Buy Nothing Ithaca group. And you know, and we're really pushing this whole zero waste thing. I actually tabled up at the Cornell Service Fair on Tuesday for 3 hours, and I had students and we had almost nothing on our table to sort of follow our zero waste message. And there were not 5 minutes went by when I did not have 2 to 3 students standing there asking me questions about zero waste. How can they get involved? What can we do to help clean up Cornell and the waste that's generated there when students move out, which was a huge issue. this spring. And that Cornell isn't really, I mean, either doesn't have the resources or anyway, is not focusing on organizing, getting that really valuable waste gathered up and resold. Anyway, so zero waste is not a 501c3 at this point, but we're going to raise some money and see if we can do that. But that has serious, what could have serious consequences because, you know, it's so closely related to this buy nothing group where people are pledging to basically use whatever's already in the community. If it's using the reuse center, using or just going on the little group site there and saying, gee, I need this, and somebody else saying, oh, I've got one of those. Let's get together. I can share that, or I'm not using this. You can have it. So people aren't going to be buying as much. I mean, well, I don't think we're having much effect on the general economy at this moment, but we are trying to make that catch on. Of course, that might not really affect the greater economy if these little things that people aren't buying allow them to invest more in owning their own home or bigger investments. Also, I'm a member of Ithaca Car Share. My bicycle is an electric bicycle. I'm using the electric vehicles I think that car share offers. I'm thinking of investing in car share to actually increase the number of electric vehicles to help increase that, and because they're struggling. And I'd like the city to be more, well, okay. The new Green New Deal manager, I think that's a great idea. I've been in some meetings with Luis, and but I kind of feel like he's got a huge agenda and maybe not enough resources to carry out much of it. But I think focusing on electric vehicles downtown and reducing our carbon footprint should be central to that, and increasing, if the city could invest in increasing charging stations for electric vehicles on the streets of Ithaca. So that's a long and varied list, but I'll stop there and let somebody else talk.
Thanks, Ed. I assume you want me to try to respond a little bit, and so
Okay.
I'm happy to do that. I think, there's actually quite a lot of philosophical alignment with what you're speaking to, and folks who work for the city and elected officials in the city. My own part is, Director of Economic Development for the city. My view is that our success with our sustainability is directly tied to our success with economic development, and we have a number of initiatives working on directly in concert. And I'm excited about that. I think there's a lot of potential. You spoke about reuse, something I'm passionate about. I talk to Diane Cohen quite often. I put a link in the chat to a program you may or may not be aware of called Circular Reuse Through Development. It's an effort to try to use deconstruction as part of the development process to building materials. Something like 30% of landfill waste, I might have that number wrong, is, but it's a lot, is made up of building waste from and so I think, we're going to be working on also around that. This group is really smart and really engaged. I happen to sit on the steering committee for the group that's convening around that, which is called the Susan Christopher Community Planning Center. And around reuse, what you're talking about, you know, from an economic development theoretical lens is about leakage and import substitution and locally focused economic development. And that's a very legitimate strategy for promoting local economic development. If we can have less of our hard-earned dollars leaving the community and circulate, and instead having circulated more in the community, that actually has the potential to increase our wealth, overall wealth as a community over time. So I teach economic development at Cornell right now, and I'm trying to recruit a student to do a study of the reuse economy in Tompkins County and what that means from an economic impact standpoint. I haven't recruited anybody yet. But, you come across any research scientists or planning students or MPA students in your own dealings, I'd love to work with somebody on that study, because I think it's hard in conventional economic development circles to make that argument, because they're so focused on the economic base and attraction of new industry sometimes. But I think it's very exciting and very legitimate approach to economic development. There was, you said a lot of other stuff about bicycling and affordability of housing to current residents and not having people pushed out. And obviously it's a very, very complex problem. And we don't necessarily have all of the solutions. I'm actually concerned about climate refugees too, that we were speaking to there earlier, and who knows what's actually going to happen. But if you look at the latest maps of climate impacts and which regions in the United States and North America actually will lose their habitability and which will be able to weather it okay. Like the Lakes region may very well see climate refugees, and what does that mean for us in terms of population influx? And those are all really big questions. I don't think we're not really talking about it seriously yet, but we probably should be. So speculative still, but planning should be focused on the future, right? And not just tomorrow, but 20 years down the line. I think that's my view anyway. So.
One more thing before I shut up for the rest of the meeting that I intended to talk about was, we talked about Downtown Ithaca Alliance and some of the other business organizations, the chamber and so forth. One of the things that the Zero Waste group is trying to do is get the ear of some of those organizations to really consider, and we have a project in place without many resources to carry forward, to promote and establish a carry-out container reuse program for takeaway food businesses and for restaurants that and for residents who take away part of their meal, to have those containers. Even in my experience and others that I've talked to in downtown, the there are some places that are really trying hard. One that I use fairly frequently is Howie downtown, and they have come up for their takeaway and for their leftovers, a paper container, which could be recyclable and could be compostable, but our food waste system will not accept those as food waste. And recycling, as I understand it, will not accept those if they're dirty. I mean, so there's a whole bunch of stuff that's going to the landfill unnecessarily. And we've had some businesses who've really responded positively to our outreach on this. And one of them that we were kind of surprised at was the Tompkins County Bar and Restaurant Association. The person we talked to there was very interested in any of these food waste reduction in container waste reduction issues. So, but others like the Chamber and DIA basically are unresponsive pretty much. Okay.
It's kind of cool. I'd like to learn more about it. You know, I think as I engage with, you know, the sort of like the intersection of some of my personal interests and my work, what I've discovered, and it's probably is not surprising, but yet it perpetuates, is that often efforts like this start from a place of, you know, of passion around environmental sustainability and the imperative to do that based on those goals, and translating that, you know, to a, you know, what's in my best business interest kind of framework is not always the first question that's asked. And, you know, so maybe nothing new there, but it's been my observation that happens continuously over time. It's not like there isn't a business case to be made. It's often just that, you know, that's not how the information is presented. And so, or it's seen as, you know, not central to my core mission, which if I'm a small business owner, it's my freaking survival at this point, you know, and they are challenged with increased labor costs, increased costs of delivery, because so many people are ordering online now, and the Uber Eats and Grab, you know, and those delivery services of the world make it very challenging to actually get a margin that allows you to have a profitable business if you're, you know, if you're using them. So, and many other things, you know, small businesses are really challenged now. So you're introducing one more thing that looks like an additional cost or burden on me as a small business owner. My first response is going to be, don't have time, you know. But if it's like, hey, this is the actual business case that shows how you're going to save money and increase customer satisfaction and support the growth of your business, well, then you've got my ear. So sometimes it's a framing.
Yeah, that is our the Zero Waste Group's goal, is to put together an argument that and show some facts and present a model that would, in fact, be advantageous to businesses to do this.
If you could get a champion, like a business owner champion that's done it and has seen success, that's always helpful.
Yeah, and the other thing we worked on, and I keep thinking of things, so shut me up when I need to. Part of that process and that discussion with the Bar and Restaurant Association had to do with offering reduced cost takeout of their leftovers or excess meals, prepared meals at the end of an evening and at the end of business day. And again, we found some interest in that because we found that we talked to the Food Network people to say, well, you know, if the businesses got involved in that, how would that affect your meal delivery and the programs that you're carrying out? And they said, well, none of that food comes to us. So so that's kind of a short circuit there.
Hey,
And
sorry, Ed. I don't want to take up too much of Tom's time here.
yeah,
I think-
okay, I just wanted to bring that up.
If you want to respond, Tom, you're more than welcome. You're
Oh, no, it's fine. I hope I got to most of the questions. I feel like there's so much more we could talk about. There's so much more I'd love to share with you that I didn't have a chance to share, but we have had quite a few people peel off already, and I know I'm getting hungry for lunch.
right. I want to give you a chance to hit lunch before whatever the afternoon is. We did hit all sorts of all different topics. So thank you for all your knowledge and perspective, and really interesting.
Well, thank you, and thanks everybody here on the call. This has been really nice.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right.
Good afternoon, everyone, and we'll see you next month. Except for you, Tom.
Francine,
Wanna come?
thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for inviting us.
Tom, thanks so much. This was really interesting.
oh, sure thing, Carol. Hopefully we can do something like this again. I was going to say to Francine, are you aware of the Reimagining Public Safety Initiative? Because you talked about public safety earlier on, but we haven't talked about it here. The city has a very major initiative underway to fundamentally transform how we do public safety in the city of Ithaca, which is really exciting and innovative. And so you're nodding, so I assume you've
I'd like to hear what the perspective of businesses is on that.
you know, it's varied, I would say. I'll tell you,
A lengthy topic.
whenever I've engaged with that process, you know, and I work for the city, so I try to engage businesses and support business, but in support of the city's goals, right? So, but my view is that, you know, so many of the calls that police have to respond to are, you know, calls that are dealing with issues such as substance abuse or mental health, or, you know, other issues that likely don't require an armed officer who has that kind of training to respond effectively. And so we've had a lot of success with our community outreach worker program downtown, Tammy Baker's program. And I would personally love to see us investing in an expansion of that type of approach to really support people with their needs, and also align the resources that we have with what the needs are. And that goes to training and expertise and networks, right? Who you know and who you can put people in touch with. And, you know, so I think the business community broadly is very open to the conversation about transforming public safety and our approach to it here, you know. And of course, there's always a concern about the impact of violent crime on perceptions of safety downtown. And, you know, so I think, you know, most people have a pretty balanced understanding of the issues. And we still have our, you know, dogmatic people here in this community who, you know, and the police union doesn't seem to be helping much in the conversation.
No,
But,
a little self-interest there.
yeah.
Yeah.
Short-term
you.
self-interest.
Thank you, Tom. I know everyone has to leave. No, I'm not part of the public safety committees or anything like that. Just one little thing. I think that for businesses, if they can, some of the money that we reap, that the city gets from the tax at business, not on residents. We pay so much tax already, but to invest in cameras. Now, I know this is a controversial issue and it has to do with privacy of some residents so that cameras aren't pointed into their homes. But I think on heavily trafficked areas and around parks in particular, parks and in front of businesses, post cameras. I can't see why businesses would be against that. To have more, I don't know why business would be against that. Everybody wants security. Residents and businesses.
We do have,
Residents, we put some cameras. This is just a suggestion that came out of our neighborhood meeting. We would like to see some more cameras. And please do not pass that cost on to residents. We already pay a lot of tax in this city. We really do. So to pass it on to all these new businesses that are coming in. Cameras, 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 okay? This big development that's going up across the street from Ithaca Bakery near the waterfront trail. I'm happy about all these developments, but I'm also a little concerned about with the increased numbers of people, especially after hours and later and more populations with quote special needs. We need some more public safety. And the police have already said that they don't have enough police. Of course, I want police friendly people, but cameras can help. Cameras can help when there aren't enough. Maybe the business community, especially these folks that are building these huge apartment buildings. I see so much development going on. I'm very excited about it, but we need some more safety. Downtown. I started walking with a big stick lately because I swear if somebody walks up on me late at night, I'm gonna beat the living daylights out of them. All right. And I also expect police to behave themselves and be respectful. So I think cameras are just a little way to kind of help out everybody. That's it. I'm saying bye-bye. Thank you so much for your presentation.
this was fun. Thank you. Thanks for your ideas.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Take care. Bye, Carol. Bye, Zach.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks, Tom.